Alright, so just wanted to record a video that will help you with the homework and kind of building on what we discussed today in class. So I'm on problem number 2 about Mike and the free throws, and I'm going to just revisit some of the stuff we did in class today and then move a little bit forward. So on 2A, it says to identify the null hypothesis. So it says Mike took 57 free throws, he made 31 of them, and we want to test the claim using a 5% significance level that the population proportion of makes, in other words, that the proportion he makes is greater than 50%. Okay. So our null hypothesis is that the mu of free throws from the sample is equal to 0.5, 50%, and mu free throw, we should define this, is the average percentage, we're getting cut off the screen here, let me move this over, average percentage of makes. And then 2B asks us to find the alternative hypothesis. So the alternative is what we're checking, right? We assume this is true, right? We assume Mike only makes 50% of his free throws. But the test is that the proportion of makes is greater than 50%. The proportion of makes is greater than 50%. On 2C, they ask us to identify what type 1 error means. So type 1 error, and this has gotten confusing in the past, so let's be really clear on it. Type 1 error is rejecting the truth. In more statistical terms, it is rejecting the null hypothesis. And in the context of this problem, type 1 error is rejecting that Mike's free throw percentage is equal to 50%. And we're getting cut off here. And concluding the free throw percent is more than 50%. So type 1 error is when you reject the truth. More statistically, it's when you reject the null hypothesis. More specifically for our problem, it's rejecting the null hypothesis that Mike's free throw percentage is equal to 50%, and concluding, right, if you reject this, you got to conclude this, and concluding that the free throw percentage is more than 50%. Then they ask us to identify, I'll do this on the next piece of paper, the probability of type 1 error. The probability of type 1 error is probability of type 1 equals the significance, which equals, it says for Mike's problem, using the 0.05 significance level, so the probability is 5%. 2D, they ask us to identify what type 2 error means. So type 2 error is when you accept a lie. Accept a lie. In statistical terms, it's when you accept a false null hypothesis. In our problem, it means what? It means we accept that Mike's free throw percentage is equal to 50%, when in reality it is greater than 50%. Type 2 error is when you accept a lie. Statistically, it's when you accept a false null hypothesis. In our example, it is we accept that Mike's free throw percentage is equal to 50%, when in reality, it is greater than 50%. 2E, this is kind of some of the stuff that we want to build on. 2E is identify the significance level for each problem. So the significance level is alpha. This is the significance level, which is 0.05. And 2F, is this a one sample or two sample test? Well, this is a one sample test because we only have one sample. Mike's 50 free throws, one sample test. All right, so that is parts A through F of Mike's problem. Now, let me do problem 7 on the back, A through F. So, 7A. Let me read number 7. To compare two dog training programs, an obedience school trained 43 dogs using program A, 41 dogs using program B. And then they said for program A, the average training hours was this, standard deviation of this. For program B, the mean was this, with standard deviation of this. Is there a difference between the two programs? So I'm going to say, let's define my variables. So mu A is the average training hours in program A. Mu B is the average training hours in program B. And the null hypothesis is we assume that they're equal, that mu A equals mu B. In part B, they want us to identify the alternative. The alternative is they are not equal. They are not equal. 7C asks us, identify what type 1 error means in this problem and the probability of it. Well, let me go to a new page just so we don't have any problems here. So 7C, so type 1 error. As I said, type 1 error is when you reject the truth, and I'll pick up the pace a little bit here because we just saw this. Reject the truth. In statistical terms, it's when you reject a true null hypothesis. And here's where it gets interesting. What does it mean in our example? In our example, it means we reject that the average hours required in program A equals average hours in program B, and we conclude the average hours between programs are different. Average hours between programs A and B are different. Okay, so again, type 1 error is when you reject the truth. In other words, in statistical terms, when you reject a true null hypothesis. In our case, when you reject that the average number of hours required in program A equals the average number of hours required in program B, and we conclude the average hours in A and B are different. This is what it means in our problem. They will ask us, what is the probability of this? Well, the probability of type 1 error, as we said earlier, is the significance level. No significance level is given, so we assume it to be 0.05. So the probability of type 1 error equals 5%. All right, and finishing up, 7D, type 2 error, which is when you accept a lie. In statistical terms, you accept a faulty null hypothesis. In our case, we accept that average number of training hours are equal in programs A and B, when in reality they are not. They are not equal. So type 2 error is when you accept a lie. statistical terms, accept a faulty null hypothesis. In our case, accept that the average number of training hours equal in programs A and B, when in reality they are not. Finally, 7E asks us to identify the significance level. Significance level is not given, so we assume alpha to be 0.05. And 7F, is this a one sample or two sample test? It has to be a two sample test because we have program A and we have program B. Alright, this video should help you take care of the homework that is due tomorrow.